Well, hello, Broncos country, and welcome into yet another episode of Broncos Brawl. As always, my name is Keegan Hartman. You can find me and follow me on Twitter at KeeganHartman1. Joining me today, as always, well, Byron should be joining us soon. If not, hey, normal crew's still here. So first and foremost, he is a Mile High Huddle alumnus. You can find him and follow him on Twitter at @V_Broncos. Ladies and gents, he is Alex Valdez. Alex, happy Friday, bro. How is Colorado right now?
Dude, it seems like every time I get a day off, it starts to rain. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, we could use some of that rain because right now it is a scorching 90 degrees outside. At least you guys don't have to deal with the humidity.
Oh, yeah, we never have to do with that. Usually it's just altitude sickness and dry skin, so we have that.
Take a visit to Missouri one day, and I promise you will love the weather you have right now. Rain.
Oh, no, I hear, like, the only reason I'm going to Missouri is, I guess there's two reasons. One, the barbecue, and two, to watch the Broncos whoop some ass in Arrowhead, so.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, I'm good. No,
yes, sir.
I'll stay here.
Hey, Kansas City barbecue. I can give them props for one thing, and that's it. Anything else? Yeah, it's an ass whooping. That's the only reason you'd come to Kansas City. That's the only reason you'd want to come to Missouri. Anyway, well, aside from that, it's been a relatively quiet off season on the Broncos front from these past few weeks. So today we wanted to keep it lighthearted. This episode's going to be really short yet super fun. Tonight we wanted to kind of take a flashback on this wonderful Flashback Friday, if you will, and discuss, see, that meshed so well. I didn't even think about that. And discuss some of our favorite memories as Broncos fans, and then maybe as players, if Byron joins in, we'll get his perspective and everything. Before I get into that, however, let's start with some news around the NFL. And first and foremost, I want to start with Ian Rappaport reported yesterday that teams will open training camps as of July 28th. Now, there are certainly more details yet to be unraveled surrounding teams returning to their respected headquarters in late July, but as Rappaport had put it, essentially there will be a tedious protocol in terms of testing both players and coaches before they get back to their campuses. Yeah, so there is your first indicator about how this season is lining up, but it gets better, not really better, but here's some more news that broke yesterday. With that news, it was reported yesterday that the 2020 Hall of Fame enshrinement game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was scheduled to take place August 6th, had also been canceled, along with the festivities surrounding the 2020 Hall of Fame weekend. This includes the 2020 Hall of Fame enshrinement, obviously, and the Hall of Fame class, which included Broncos safety Steve Atwater. They will, in fact, that entire class will be inducted in 2021, or at least it'll be postponed temporarily. Alex, I want to ask you, I'll start off with this, man. Unfortunately, is this going to kind of foreshadow or be a precursor to maybe not having an NFL season in 2020, given now that you've already taken these steps? This is kind of, I don't want to say this is shocking because we kind of expected this with every other sport. We're kind of going with the pace of the other sports. Of course, the NBA is coming back July 30th, and then the MLB is going to be coming back, I believe, July 24th. So all that's lining up to come back in late July, and now the NFL takes this step to bring everything back July 28th and allow the teams come back. But that's almost kind of like a bad sign, I guess is how I'm interpreting it. What do you think these steps mean for the 2020 season? What do you foresee with these steps? Excuse me.
I would have been worried had they postponed or, as some coaches wanted or some GMs wanted, was to add more, rounds to the draft. But they kept the draft going on as usual, and a lot of people actually preferred the way they did it. But no, that stayed on track. You've got teams able to meet in their Zoom meetings, and then the fact that they're going to be able to get back into training camp, obviously not fan-attended training camps, but everything seems on track to be at least get football on the field. Whether there's fans in the stands, that's a different story. But, I mean, you see, NHL, MLB, and basketball taking off. I mean, I don't see why the NFL can't do the same. only thing I guess, that worries me, I mean, it's just going to be, politics aside, pandemic, to the front of the line, we're talking about just here in Colorado, they're saying 40% of Coloradans have COVID, whether it's, whether they know it, with the asymptomatical, I believe the word is, it's a big word, whether they know it or not. So I'm kind of wondering, once they start testing players and get them into camp, are we going to see a spike in players not being there? And then once they're, stuck at home, what does that mean for them? So I guess I'm more worried about that entering camp. I am less worried about a meaningless Hall of Fame game that takes place 2 weeks after training camp starts, where neither team is playing anyone of significance, and you're playing fourth stringers at that point.
I mean, yeah, you take the 2 preseason. You bring up a good point. I mean, they'd already planned taking out 2 preseason games, at least from what I heard. That was kind of the expectation with the pace that COVID had been going. They were going to take out 2 preseason games, and teams were only going to be playing 2 preseason games and not 4, obviously. I think that they're going to have to take this day by day if they want to determine whether or not they're going to have a 2020 season. These next few weeks are going to be a good litmus test. Of course, they're going to probably be doing more and more testing with players and coaches as the time nears. But that's going to be, in and of itself, the answer. Is if these coaches and players continue to see cases, unfortunately, you're going to have to really evaluate what you can do as the season comes around. And keep in mind, July 28th to when the first week of preseason starts, which August 6th was the scheduled date for the NFL enshrinement game. I mean, it's kind of a short turnaround. The 2 games is still, I mean, that's a pretty good cushion to the regular season, but I don't know if that's enough, man. I am at the point where I think that we won't see fans in the stands for 2020, but I'm getting heavily convinced that it could be much worse than that, and I think it's all going to be predetermined in these next few weeks. We're going to have to see how the NBA does, the MLB does, and then ultimately what these coaches and players are going to look like when they get back to their facilities. 100%.
I don't think I have much of a problem. Like, what's going on with the, since I'm here in Denver, the big thing would be with the Nuggets, they lose their home field advantage. Since now everyone has to play down in Orlando, they don't have the altitude to lean on. But the Broncos, I believe, are still going to be able to do that with them flying players in. So that is something I don't worry about as far as fans being in the stands, because, you could always pump in crowd noise as long as it's regulated between all teams and done the right way. I'm just more worried about, had they lost their home field advantage with altitude. I think that's something that you really can't take out of the Denver Broncos themselves. So as far as fans in the stands, I could care less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's going to be a time thing. I mean, we've continued to talk about this these past few weeks. We've been keeping an eye on it, and now it's kind of a step in. This is going to be the real determining factor on what happens if there's going to be a 2020 season. I think this is the turning point right here, even though it's not much of a time cushion to be able to turn around and prepare for the NFL season. So I still think this is a big date to keep in mind, and we'll keep an eye on it. But in the meantime, that wasn't the intention or the reason why we even had this show today. It was because we wanted to flash back on this wonderful Friday and be able to highlight our top five memories as Denver Broncos fans and players alike. I think Byron could probably, join the show in the coming moments. If not, hey, Alex and I have so many memories. We were talking about this before the show. We have so many memories. It's amazing how many memories and highlights we have of this team. So, Alex, I'm going to give you the floor, man. Do you have a top 5 list? Was it hard to compile one? From what you were telling me before the show, it sounded like it was a pretty difficult decision, which I can't blame you. I'll let you have the floor, man. Top 5. What do you think?
30 years. I mean, obviously I'm not watching or understanding what I'm looking at when I'm 5 years old, but I do remember the first 2 Super Bowls and everything after that. And I've been a freak of nature Broncos fan ever since. So yeah, compiling a top 5. I mean, you've got everything from, Hall of Fame speeches to, the one time I got to have my media pass over at training camp. I've got, we've got playoffs. We've got Terrell Davis's 2,000-yard game. Man, I don't even know where to start. So I wrote down the ones that always just pop up into my mind, and I'm never, ever, ever going to reference the Fail Mary. I'm doing it right here, but unfortunately, it's just something that I cannot get rid of, especially because they brought in Flacco. It kills me. So we're going to go with my top 5. So top 5 right now, I would go with one of my earliest memories is a 43-yard catch and throw to Eddie Mack from John Elway in the AFC Championship game. It was a comeback. I believe Elway finished 10 of 50, like 10. He did not have that great of a box score. I don't think he had any touchdowns that game either, but he came back with that comeback, which I wish Byron was here, because I'm sure he was here for it. But man, that AFC Championship game in 1998 and that comeback, it was like, it was almost destiny. You could almost feel it in the in the 2015 AFC Championship game. How about we go 5 for 5? So you give your top 5. That was my top 5, or my number 5.
Number 5.
What was yours? Yeah, what was yours?
Oh man, I'm in the same boat as you. I would have to say I'm a more recent guy. I didn't get to witness Elway. I didn't get to. When I thought of this list and compiling everything, I had to go back to Tebow time. I just had to go back to Tebow time. And I don't know, man. I would say the Miami Dolphins game where Tebow is in the final 4 minutes of the game and Tebow just constructs an amazing closing out of, I only remember bits and pieces because I believe I was like 11 or 12 years old when he did this, but to be able to win the game in the final 4 seconds, I believe they were down by 14, I want to say, and to be able to come back and win that game, I couldn't remember the stat lines off the top of my head, but Tim Tebow that whole time, man, the Chicago Bears, Miami Dolphins. I'm thinking of other games. Of course, the iconic Pittsburgh Steelers game, which I'll get into later on. That's a cliche one amongst Broncos fans, but that's in the list as well. But that one came to mind. That one stood out. I really like the Miami Dolphins game. So I know that was a little weak compared to yours, but I'm going to...
No. I like that one a lot. Actually, I remember that game. And unfortunately enough, he tricked me because that game... in that fourth quarter, he made a throw where he threw it, and I believe it could have been to either Julius or the other tight end at the time. He threw it, and the tight end was not even in the picture, and just out of nowhere, it was just sight unseen throw, and I was like, oh, snap, Tim Tebow has something going on here. And then, of course, we know what Tim Tebow turned out to be, but, man, that whole year, I mean, who gets excited about an 8-8 year? I mean, what is going on? But I mean, it was just incredible. That entire year was, yeah. And actually, he is my number 4. So yeah, I mean, we can talk about that year if you want to. I mean, that Bears were. I mean, the guy runs out of bounds. I mean, what are you doing? It was to where you were starting to think that, someone up above was starting to meddle with Broncos games because, I mean, some of those games were improbable. I mean, what did he win a game with 2 completions? I mean, it was ridiculous.
Iconic. That's the best way to describe it, man. Number 4, what do you think, man?
Oh yeah, that was my number 4 was, I mean, we can talk about the whole season, but I mean, if we're going to be honest, there's only one thing to remember about that season that's, deserving of so, and it was the Tim Tebow pass to Demaryius Thomas.
The Demaryius, okay. My bad. I thought you were giving like the whole Tebow time that whole season, just going down as your 4. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
That'd be a cop out, man. I mean, if we're gonna do that, I mean, we can talk about the 2015 season. Oh yeah, don't get me started.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. It's a little higher for me because that one, you have to think there was such a long drought of playoff absence for the Denver Broncos in that little time frame. Of course, you went through the Josh McDaniels era. I think he's on the back half of the Mike Shanahan era into the McDaniels, then into John Fox. So that moment, just to be able to see that and see your team advance in what had been so long. I feel like it has higher merit in my book. So for number 4, I got to go back to November 29th, 2015, and it's in the opening minutes, I believe the New England Patriots got a drive, and then Brock Osweiler steps up, and Peyton Manning, I believe, is out with this that long period where Peyton Manning's out with an injury. Of course, prior to this game, actually, no, it was after this game, a couple weeks after, I want to say, he had secured home field advantage. Brock Osweiler did against the Bengals. A really good game he played on the back half of that season. But this game in particular against the New England Patriots, snowy game, Denver's down, they're playing sloppy, and then they make a comeback in the second half. And I got to tell you, this one sticks out to me because there's a lot of what am I trying to say? It's a lot of sentiment here. My grandmother shockingly passed away a week after this game. But I'll never forget C.J. Anderson running for maybe a 40-yard trot off of a halfback toss and goes right down the sideline. And this is a 10-0 New England Patriots team that comes in. And you got to keep in mind, Tom Brady doesn't play well at Mile High. He never has in his career. And this was the icing on the cake. This was redemption. The Denver Broncos put them at &1 in overtime. C.J. Anderson closes out, gets the go-ahead touchdown. That one that sticks with me forever. I watch that Sunday night game every time I get the chance. It puts me to sleep. Literally, it's put me to sleep. Like, that game is so iconic because it is just the epitome of Denver Broncos football. Snowy game against the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. Just the best ingredients.
Oh, well, I mean, now that you bring it up, I'm just sitting here thinking about how close the AFC Championship game was that year. And, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from that Broncos defense, but, I mean, can you imagine having to play that game in Foxborough, which means that game that you're talking about meant 3 times as much? I mean, because you're talking about, home field advantage in the AFC Championship game that they just won right there on that halfback toss.
Yeah. It just and then to be able to exactly. And then you go into the playoffs that year against the Patriots and you're still able to do it. And it was those 2 games, those 2 occurrences we played the Patriots were probably the 2 most defining games of that season. I had the mindset that Denver was going to win the Super Bowl after we won New England. Those were the high points of the season when we played New England twice. Because if you beat them once, you're good. You beat them twice, you're destined. So I just think that it was just a phenomenal showing and great team effort. And honestly, I'm ready to see that again because I'm getting chills just thinking about that moment. Just, it's amazing.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Anytime you beat the Patriots, it's always special. And then anytime you beat them to secure playoff seeding, oh, man, it's even better. And then you rob them of a Super Bowl. I mean, cherry on top.
Beautiful. Number 3. Did you have a number 3 or?
Well, I mean, speaking of beating the Patriots, let's go to my son's namesake, Champ Bailey. Red zone INT versus the Patriots. 99-yard return in the divisional round. Mind you, I mean, in my head, I was watching this thinking, I mean, it's the Patriots, let's get through this and, let's see what we can do. But, I mean, dude, you beat the Patriots. You're set up real nice. Mind you, they didn't go very far after that. But, I mean, man, that just sealed GOAT status for me for Champ Bailey.
I told you before the show, I have very little recollection of that game, but I was in the crowd. I was 7 rows up from where, and keep in mind, I'm only 7 years old at the time. This was in January of 2006. It was a cold game. I do remember that. I mean, you're in Colorado. I remember the noise. I don't remember any of the highlights, but that game I look back on the highlight itself, him running 99 yards to be chased down by Ben Watson at the 1-yard line, and I just think, man, gosh, I would kill to remember that. Like, I don't remember. I hardly remember it at all. But I remember vivid pieces. And, dude, it's amazing.
I actually saw something from Bill Belichick where where he chased Champ down at the 1-yard line, how they know, or, they acknowledge that it sucked that they lost because of that throw and INT, but, he likes to celebrate the fact that Watson tracked him down. I mean, I mean, you're still in someone's headspace because, you still had to track him down. So the fact that even Bill Belichick still remembers that, I mean, anytime you can affect the GOAT like that and his nightmares, I'm all for it.
So the Ben Watson chase down against Champ Bailey is at your number 3 spot. And there's Byron joining us. Byron, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. All right, so Byron's joining us here, and Alex is here as well. We're going down our top 5 list of our favorite Broncos memories. And Alex and I, Byron, we're at our number 3 spot, but we really wanted to get your perspective on your top 5 Broncos memories, man. We're just gonna, before we clear out our top 2 spots, I think I'm on my 3rd. Before we clear out our final spots, Byron, I'm going to let you have the floor, man. Your top 5.
Can you review what the spots that?
Oh yeah, man.
You were in?
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, I'll let Alex go down his first, and then I'll go down mine. And
all right. All right. So my number 5 was the 43 yard throw and catch to Eddie Mack in the AFC Championship game, 1998. I'm not sure if you remember that one. It was
of course, I remember that.
Yeah, you guys were trailing, and sure enough, John Elway was not having his best game. I mean, he wasn't having a terrible game. Again, this is just going off the top of my head. I don't even think he finished with 200 yards over 18, passing attempts. You guys were leaning heavily on that MVP type of running back there, but he threw that 43-yard pass down to Eddie Mack, and man, I just remember thinking, like, we still have a Hall of Fame quarterback, and that's just something to be said, on top of the fact that you're riding an MVP at the time.
Well, let me give you a little details on that, too.
Yeah, what's up?
That play, on that specific play, it's funny because when they break the huddle, Ed McCaffrey and Rod Smith line up on the wrong side. Okay, so Ed lines up on Rod's side, and Rod lines up on Eddie's side, and they're trying to switch. And John just tells him, "Hey, just stay where you are." And basically, you run Rod's route, you run Ed's route. Ed, you run Rod's route, and Rod, you run Ed's route. And so that play was actually designed for Rod Smith, but those guys landed up on the wrong side of the formation. And but it all worked out, and that's what having a Hall of Fame quarterback can do for you, and just smart players too, that understand, not just what they're supposed to do on the play, but what everybody's doing on the play. So Rod knew exactly what to run, what Ed was going to be running on the other side, and Ed knew exactly what Rod was supposed to run, which was the deep post, and John hit him, and that kind of gave us momentum to, because we were down in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the fourth quarter comeback, oh man, just give me all that. I had number 4, obviously. I'm sure it's a lot higher on everyone else's boards, which is Tim Tebow's pass in the AFC divisional round game to Demaryius Thomas, because just the way that Dick LeBeau was playing him, I mean, he had no respect for his arm, which, I mean, maybe he shouldn't have. But, I mean, the fact that it bit him in the ass, I love that. And then he just took it to the house. Then I've got number 3 we just covered was Champ Bailey's red zone INT versus the Patriots, the 99-yard INT return in the divisional round. Which, according to Keegan, he was there and doesn't remember it. So go ahead and give him some flack for that.
I honestly, I don't. I was 7.
That was a great moment, and because it came against the Patriots, that makes it extra special.
Oh, 100%, man. I was gonna say, so mine is filled. It's not far off from what Alex was, because I touch on Tebow time and I touch on defeating the Patriots. So at my number 5, we're talking about Tim Tebow against the Miami Dolphins. I know I was about 10 years old, and I can remember in the final 4 minutes of the game, Tim Tebow steps up and he comes back. I think you're down 14, and it just Tebow time ignites. And I think this is at the beginning of Tim Tebow's, shining moment in the NFL and kind of really proving his worth. Then he goes on that big spree, defeating teams like the Bears and then, of course, the Steelers in the playoffs, which Ed has, like I told Alex, I said that's got a little bit of a higher merit than just being a top. You had it at a number 4. It was number 5 moment, right, Alex? Or it was number 5 or 4. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was my number 4.
Number 4. Okay. I was it's got a little bit higher for me, but that's my number 5 is the Miami Dolphins and Tim Tebow storming back to win that game for the Broncos in the waning moments. And then I touched bases on the Patriots. November 29th, 2015. 1 week before my grandmother had shockingly passed. This one holds a lot of sentiment to me because we defeat the Patriots in prime time in a snowy game, and C.J. Anderson in overtime is the go-ahead touchdown right here, runs right down the sideline for 40-plus yards. It was a halfback toss from Brock Osweiler, and he closes out the game and gives the New England Patriots their first loss of the season. They go 10-1 after that. It just amazing. Gives me chills to this day, man. But that's where I'm at as far as my 4 and 5. And then I guess I can say my number 3, and then I'll let you go down all the way up to your number 3, Byron, if that's cool. And then we'll go 2 and 1.
That's fine.
All right. My number 3, guys, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one because, I mean, it holds a little bit of value to me, and it's going to the NFL draft in 2019 and seeing Drew Lock, who went to both mine and Byron's former school, well, Byron's former and my current school, be drafted by the Denver Broncos in the second round. I don't think that there is anything better than broadcasting and representing the University of Missouri and then seeing, a guy that you had watched in part of your college years to get drafted to the team that you watch on the professional level. It was amazing to me. And then all the coverage we did leading up to him getting drafted, me going to the Hall of Fame enshrinement game last year and covering him. It just so much connection there and so much sentiment there. A lot of great memories from covering Drew Lock's career. Just amazing to see his journey and how far he's grown and come along. So that's my number 3.
Oh man, like I'm not as close to the situation as you both are, especially you, Keegan, at the time. But man, like as soon as I was pushing pretty hard for Baker Mayfield, and as soon as it was apparent that Broncos weren't going to get him, I had already shifted gears before they even drafted Bradley Chubb at the time. I was already fully on board with Drew Lock and pushing for him, well even before that draft had even happened. So, man, I was a big Drew Lock fan, and one of the, obviously not the first or the biggest at the time, seeing how you both, this was your alma mater at the time.
Yeah, that was a great moment, Keegan. I, echo that sentiment, man, because, like you said, Drew being a Missouri kid and playing for the Tigers and what he did while he was at MU. But what made it so big for me is the fact that I played with his dad. And his dad, Andy, was one of our team captains. He was an offensive guard, and he was coached by Andy Reid, and he was one of our team captains. And you talk about a great guy, a great person, a great leader. His dad was all that, and as you see, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. But going to my list, my top 5, I'm actually going to start with my honorable mentions because there were some great moments there. And let me give this exclaimer too. My top 5 list is going to be specifically my time with the Broncos. So there's a lot of great moments in Bronco history. We all know that, but it's just I'm gonna limit it to my time with the Broncos. And what I'm gonna say is this: my honorable mention moments would be the '98 playoffs, specifically the game that we played against Miami, and then the game that we played against the New York Jets. And Miami, because it was a revenge game. We played them earlier in the year, near the end of the year, and they beat us. But the way that they beat us and the way that their team reacted on the sideline and in the game, because they, we were, I think that was our second loss of that year. And just seeing how they reacted and a lot of the trash talking that went on that game. And we knew we'd see them again. And, guys were really jacked up to play them, and we just didn't want to beat them. I mean, the theme that week was like, hey, guys, let's not just beat these guys. Let's embarrass them. Let's really embarrass them. And we beat them 39-3. So that was one of my honorable mention moments, just that having that revenge. Also, the game against the Jets, and we talked about one of the plays in that, but just that entire game, understanding that, that they came out and they gave us their best shot. They had a 10-0 lead going in the third quarter. And, just seeing how our team responded in the fourth quarter like champions do, that was awesome. And knowing that we were going to our second Super Bowl. Another one of my honorable mention moments is the 97 AFC Championship game in Pittsburgh when we beat the Steelers. And it's sort of a similar deal. We had played them earlier in the regular season. They beat us, but it wasn't the type of trash talking, but we knew that we had to go on the road if we were going to face them again. We obviously went and there and we won that game and headed to the Super Bowl. But more than that game, what's the moment that I'm actually pinpointing is the plane ride back to Denver. Knowing that we were going to our first Super Bowl as a group, and we knew that our quarterback, John Elway, was, his years were winding down, so we wanted to get him back to that big game. Plane ride was one of the best parties, and just the enthusiasm, the energy on that plane. Oh my goodness! I remember like it yesterday. It was just such a great time and a great feeling knowing that we were going to the Super Bowl. So those are my honorable mention moments. So let me get into my top 5. Okay. So number 5 would be my second game as a Bronco. We're playing the Washington Redskins in 1995. And, that game's kind of going back and forth. And, the Redskins are making plays. We're not quite executing like we should be. We thought we'd go in that game and pretty much, blow them out or whatever. But it's a tight game. And we get the ball back with a few minutes left, and we're driving down. And we're down to our last 4 seconds. And we're on about the 50-yard line. And John Elway goes back and he throws a 50-yard bomb, and Rod Smith jumps over Hall of Famer Darryl Green for the game-winning catch with no time on the clock. And the thing about it was Rod Smith's first NFL catch. He had just come off the practice squad, so he was an unproven, unknown guy going up against Darryl Green, who was a future Hall of Famer at the time. And just seeing the way John had this confidence and brought us back and winning that game. And you'd always hear about the, John Elway fourth quarter comebacks. And I was like, man, my second game, I'm like, okay, this is for real. This guy is real. And so it just made it really real for me that this is our quarterback. And when we got him, we always got a chance. It doesn't matter until the clock, says 0. And winning that game in that fashion, huge moment for me. My fourth moment. Okay, and a lot of people may not understand where I'm going with this, but it was a huge moment for us as a team. And it's the 96 playoffs loss to Jacksonville Jaguars. We're the number 1 team in the AFC, best record, 13-3. We hadn't lost a home game in 2 years, and we got home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And Jacksonville comes in as I think it was second or third year as an expansion franchise, second year, and they come into Denver and they beat us 30-27. And the reason that moment is so high on my list, because I'll tell everybody to this day, that moment was the catalyst for us winning back-to-back Super Bowls. That disappointment really hit hard with everybody on that team. And we knew we could win the Super Bowl. But Jacksonville coming to there and upsetting us let us really know, like, hey, you can't take anything for granted. You can't take anybody for granted. And it doesn't matter if you're the number one team. People are gunning for you. You got to protect your home field. And so that moment, although it was such a disappointment, it was a catalyst for our team because guys came back that next year so focused, so determined to get back into that position in the playoffs and go on a run for the playoffs. So, and that's exactly what we did. So that's my number 4 moment. My number 3 moment. It's NFL history. The '98 season where Terrell Davis rushed for 2,000 yards, 2008 to be exact. And just that moment against Seattle, the last game of the year, the Seattle Seahawks, when Terrell, goes over 2,000 yards. It was exhilarating, man, because it's something that we, especially as an offense, we worked for. We really wanted it. It wasn't just about him. It was about the offensive line. It was about the tight ends. It was about the receivers blocking in the running game. And it truly was a group effort and a group honor to get this guy over 2,000 yards. And, of course, Terrell, he was phenomenal, and he was definitely the best player in the NFL that year. And getting him to 2,000 yards, man, as an offense, incredible moment, and that's my number 3 moment.
Dude, you had he blew it out of the water. Byron, like we had memories, and it's just yeah. You won the list, and now just for. We're at our number 2 spot. I'm gonna ask Byron. You can just kick it off, man. Your number 2 spot, and we'll just go down the line, and then we'll come back through with our number 1 spot. But Byron, since you're on fire, what's your number 2 biggest memory?
My if you know me, the top 2 is easy. You know what those top 2 moments are, but you don't know what order they're coming in, and And I would say this. My number 2 moment is 1997, or actually it's January 25th, 1998, Super Bowl 32. And this one's for John. Just getting to that game, man, was amazing. And you're playing the Packers, who were the defending champion. They had 3-time NFL MVP Brett Favre, legend of the game. And so we knew it was a tough task. They had one of the best defensive lines in football, led by Hall of Famer and one of the greatest defensive linemen in NFL history, Reggie White. But that moment, getting to that game and understanding that this Broncos franchise had been there before and on numerous occasions and got embarrassed there, by the Cowboys and the Giants and the Washington Redskins. And so understanding that what we did to bring that championship to Denver for the first time ever, it was special, man. That was tremendous. And and us to a man, I told the story like 2 days ago to somebody. I remember when we were on this stage of Super Bowl, and that whole week, guys are talking like, hey, man, this could be John's last go-around at it, man. We can't let this guy leave the game without getting a Super Bowl. He's meant too much to the city of Denver. He's meant too much to the state of Colorado, too much to the Rocky Mountain region. This guy has meant everything to the franchise. So guys were like, hey, we cannot lose this game. I don't care what we do, we got to somehow find a way to win this game for number 7. And that's exactly what we did. And going back to, like we said, Terrell Davis, tremendous, 157 yards, Super Bowl record, 3 touchdowns. and he sat out the whole second quarter with a migraine headache. And that's scary to imagine what he could have did playing 4 quarters. And so, that to me, and then seeing Pat Bowlen up there with the Super Bowl trophy, because it was as much for John, it was for him as well. Pat Bowlen, one of the greatest owners in NFL history, and just to go and see him hold that trophy, and everybody remembers those 4 words: "This one's for John." I mean, that to me was an ultimate moment in Bronco history, ultimate moment in my career. And I'll let you guys go and tell your second greatest moment in Bronco history.
Alex, I'll let you go first, man. That's hard to top.
Dude, what's the use of even going anymore? I mean, no one cares about what a fan thinks. Byron's giving us the inside info, man. No one cares what we think.
I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah, this guy won.
I'll give a fan's perspective. Something Byron for sure can't say he was on the field for, so we'll take that from him. Obviously it'll be 2015 Super Bowl, because I mean, the Broncos, much like what Byron was saying with the 96 Jaguars, that 2013 loss to the Seahawks, that was a turning point for John Elway. I mean, if you look what he did the following season, I mean, he revamped the defense. He got Ward, he got Talib, he got Ware, and that he basically turned arguably one of the best offenses in NFL history, maybe the best offense in NFL history, into the best defense in NFL history. It again is arguable, but I mean, in today's rules where the offense is favored and the defense is not, he basically had 2 different Super Bowl teams, and this one, he finally connected. And again, like Byron said, I'm sure that 2015 team is just sitting there looking at, Peyton, and they're just wanting to get him another Super Bowl. So, man, I mean, you can't take away what, this, I don't know, in my opinion, it should be in everyone's opinion, a first ballot Hall of Famer in Von Miller, once he retires. You can't take away what the guy did. I mean, how many guys have won a Super Bowl MVP as a defensive player? And the guy he just made, who was it, Remmers, his B all night long. And how Remmers was still in the NFL after that, got himself a contract. I mean, kudos to him. But the fact that Von Miller just, he was a quarterback on offense. The dude was scoring points on defense. It was just incredible just to see a guy take over a game like that, and completely just get into the head of an NFL MVP at the time in Cam Newton, who has not really been the same since. So, I mean, man, 2015 Super Bowl, give me that all day.
Well, I mean, and we're excuse me, we're like one off from each other, Alex, and I'm gonna say this. Like, my final one, I'm just going to give you a hint. It does involve Super Bowl 50. But this number 2, in terms of downfall, Denver has been notorious for producing that out of other teams. And this particular play, as you alluded to in your top 5, Alex, I think you guys know what's coming, is the overtime win from Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas, that throw across the middle, the iconic run all the way, and then the wonderful Jim Nantz saying Denver's going on to New England as soon as Demaryius Thomas hits the end zone. And this just chronicled Tebow time in the NFL. It etched it etched Tim Tebow's time in the NFL. Although brief, it made it just a chapter that was so, shocking to everybody, because you have to think there was not a lot of people giving him credit for what he was able to produce. He wasn't very much of a passer. He was a mobile quarterback more than anything. And he was the hottest QB on the, in the game at the time. Whenever he had those comebacks in the waning seconds, it was set up perfectly. Can you do it against a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who in years prior had success, had recently been to a Super Bowl? I guess if you want to consider 2009-ish a recent visit to the Super Bowl. But the Steelers weren't a slouch team. They were a playoff contender out of the AFC. So to be able to go up against Ben Roethlisberger, yes, they had a couple of injuries, but nevertheless, still be able to get it done as young as you are. It was amazing to see this drought of Broncos playoffs. You know, I believe the last time prior might have been 2007, around that time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was just such a long drought, and that was a much needed play right there. Although they did have 10 people on the field, the Pittsburgh Steelers did. If you go back and watch the film, that game, that play, that moment, it's amazing and is forever etched into Broncos history. So for that reason, it's my number 2 easily because of just the hype around it and who they played. Number 2 goes to Tebow.
All right, Byron, here's where you blow us out of the water. Give us your number 2.
No, I'm going to let you go. I think I'm going to end this thing, but I love that Super Bowl 50 as one of the top moments. That's one of my honorable mention moments. And no, I was not there on the field. I was in row 4 behind the team, but it was great to see that. And for me, it meant so much for John to, like you said, put that team together. And the other part of that was Gary Kubiak being the coach that year. Kub was the guy who really gave me a shot and gave me a chance in our offense and really believed in me and believed in my talent. So I was so extremely happy for Gary Kub.
Not only that, but I mean, can you imagine taking the ball out of arguably a top 3, top 2 quarterback of all time and, you know, just pretty much saying, you know, game managed for us, we'll win you a Super Bowl? I mean,
yeah.
Man,
well, that was the plan on Super Bowl 32 is, you know, because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters is who wins that game. You know, right. At the end of the day, it's about who wins the game, who's holding the trophy, and who's on the field when the confetti is falling. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. Like, I remember after Super Bowl 30, Rod Smith did not catch one single pass, and that was one of the questions one of the reporters asked him. His locker was next to mine. They were like, "Hey, are you disappointed that you didn't catch a ball in the game?" Like, man, my Super Bowl ring is going to be the same size as John Elway's. My Super Bowl bonus is going to be the exact same, and we got the trophy. So why would I be upset? You know, what matters in that game is being the last team standing.
Well, I'm right on the same page as you guys. I'm just one above you, Alex. My number 1 moment would have to be the difference from what it was in Super Bowl 48, Super Bowl 50, the opening moment, one of the earliest plays in that game, strip sack, Von Miller, Malik Jackson recovers in the end zone. They score. That automatically, for me, in my head, I'm like, it's early in the game, but that pretty much sealed the deal. The momentum our defense had, it just looked unstoppable and dangerous. And to see my team physically just win a Super Bowl for the first time in my lifetime, that was awesome to be able to witness that moment. A far better feeling than what Super Bowl 48 was. So to see Von Miller annihilate Cam Newton, beautiful, just beautiful. So Super Bowl 50, strip sack, Von Miller playing lights out that whole game, sending Peyton Manning off right into the sunset. That is my number 1 moment. And Alex or Byron, whichever one you want to, I guess Byron's going to close us out.
Alex.
Yeah, Alex.
All right. Yeah, Byron can definitely finish this one out. If his is different, I mean, I'd be surprised. But, I mean, number 1, I don't know how any Broncos fan can watch this without getting teary-eyed. I mean, everything from Dave Logan's call to the slow motion, seeing John's eyes check out the sticks and everything. It's got to be the helicopter. I mean, I saw it live. I knew what I was watching at the time. I just saw greatness. I saw a guy, again, just like Logan said, you could tell the guy just he refused to lose. He was going to lay it out all in the line at 37 years old, 36, whatever it was. I mean, the guy is he sold his body out for his team, for his players, for the play. I mean, it was beautiful. And it wasn't even for a touchdown. The guy was just trying to extend, the play, trying to keep his team in the game. I mean, what can you say about that play? It was most memorable in any players or any fans' eyes that saw it live.
Alex, that's a great moment, man. And I'll give you a little more on that moment. Yeah, it wasn't for a touchdown, but it was for a first down, and it kept our drive alive. And we eventually, Terrell scored his second touchdown of the game on that drive. But I'll tell you this, as a player on the field, when we see John, go for it, and he dives and does the helicopter, and he gets up. And if you watch that play, watch when he gets up and he pumps his left fist and pumps his left fist in the air. I'm telling you, the electricity that went through our team, the electricity that went through the Bronco fans in the stadium, the energy was, it was palpable. Like you could taste it, you could feel it. It was like, wow, we are not losing this game. And number 7 is not going to let us lose this game. And guys were like on the sideline was like, if he's willing to do that to get a first down, dude, I got to do whatever it takes for this team and for this guy to win his first Super Bowl. That moment was special. It didn't make my list, but the game itself did. But yeah, that moment was the moment we knew we were going to win Super Bowl 32. So let's get into my number one moment, my number one Bronco moment. But let me go back. Let me rewind, because I got another honorable mention moment, and that was the AFC Championship game right before Super Bowl 50, playing the Patriots in Denver. That was a huge deal. You got Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. You got Von Miller, and you got that defense facing Gronk and Brady in that offense. That, to me, the energy in that stadium that day was amazing. And the Bronco fans are always the best. So that it wasn't going to be a question. But then you throw in the Patriots and who they are into that mix, and what we're playing for in the AFC Championship. And just, the thing about that game was I was supposed to be in the suite. And it was myself, Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis, Steve Atwater, and Rod Smith. And we were supposed to go and watch the game from the suite, but we were on the field for the pregame. And the energy, we're like, man, there's no way we're going to watch that game up there. We're staying right here on this side, and we're going to root our team on. We're going to cheer for our guys, and I want to be right here in the thick of the action. So that's what we did. And we watched that game from the sideline with the team, and that was an amazing moment. It's one of my honorable mention moments. But let's get to number one. My number one moment, definitely Super Bowl 33. The back-to-back Super Bowl champions. And here's why. Here's why I picked 33 over 32. There's just, as a kid, we've all played that game, King of the Mountain, man. And you're on top of that mountain, and everybody's trying to pull you off and get you down, and you're going to take everybody's best shot, and that was the thing about it, man. Just defending the title versus chasing the title, and defending it to me was such real toughness. It was just tougher because we knew we had everybody gunning for us. And the thing, we played some teams that weren't very good. We played the Cincinnati Bengals that year, and they played us so tough. And we'd look at, you would watch them on film and you go, wow, this ain't the same team that we watched on film. Like, they're playing hard. But, for teams like that, it was their Super Bowl. It was their time to knock off the champ. The other reason I choose 32 was the fact that kind of coming into the game, we kind of knew that this would be it for number 7. This was John Elway's, this was his last dance. You could just feel it. He didn't say it, but you could kind of sense it that this was his last go around. And so going into that game, everybody wanted to send number 7 off into the sunset, with another Super Bowl. So, and then the other part of that game was, for me, I remember that week before the game, we're in practice in Miami, and I'm talking to my best friend Terrell Davis, and I'm telling him, hey Terrell, you know what? I got this feeling this week that, man, I'm gonna have a pretty good game this game. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, man. I just got this feeling that, I'm gonna play pretty well this game, and so what happens is Shannon Sharp, our starting tight end, goes down at the end of the first quarter, and so now I'm thrust into his role, and wind up having a really good game. Every catch I made that Super Bowl was for a first down, so we kept drives alive, moved the chains. Also recovered 2 onside kicks that game and was voted the special teams player of the game. And so that made it really special for me. But I'm going to tell you one of the most special moments after the game, and then I'll end it. So after the game, you're doing the interviews, you're doing the whole media thing, and I'm talking to a lot of people, and the team is in the locker room, and then they wind up leaving, and the last 2 guys there, because we're still doing interviews, is myself and John Elway. And so the Broncos leave a guy, Fred Fleming. He works for the organization. They leave him behind to kind of chaperone, to kind of take care of us. I was going to say chaperone, but just kind of take care of us and make sure we made it to the bus. They left a bus there for us, and so it's just me and John. And he's doing his interviews. He finishes up. I finish up. We jump in the shower, get dressed or whatever, and we're walking towards the bus, me, John, and Fred Fleming. And there's some guy there. He'd say, hey, congratulations on Super Bowl. And he's like, hey, I got these Cuban cigars. I'd love to give you guys one, just for you guys to celebrate your Super Bowl win. And so we take the cigars from the guy, and we board the team bus. Like I said, there's only 3 people on it, me, John, and Fred. And we asked the bus driver, hey, bus driver, is it okay if we smoke these Victory cigars while we're on our way back to the hotel? He obliges us, man. And so I'm sitting there with Fred Fleming and John Elway after he's just played his last game in the NFL, first ballot Hall of Famer. And we're smoking a Victory cigar together, man, just enjoying the moment, reliving the moment, talking about the game, talking about different things that happened in the game, man, and different plays that were made or that were missed or whatever, different opportunities that we might have missed or whatever. And just having that special moment with John and knowing, like, okay, this is it for this guy, and his next stop is Canton, Ohio, the Hall of Fame. I mean, that to me was one of the most special moments in my NFL career, and that's why I choose Super Bowl 33 as my number 1 moment in Bronco history and number 1 moment for me as a Bronco. Drop the mic.
This man smoked a Cubano on a bus with John Elway. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's unfair.
That is. I mean, dude, Byron, that is awesome. That is literally, that's got to be so cool, dude. That's amazing. So, do you have, I'm sure, this is probably the dumbest question you've ever been asked. I'm sure you still have the t-shirts and the hats and whatever, the newspaper copies to kind of, to remember that moment. I know,
well, yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, my mom kept everything. And so, I've got hats, I've got T-shirts, I've got jackets that say Super Bowl 32 and 33 on them. I've got, newspaper, magazines, all kind of stuff. And most importantly, though, I've got some jewelry. I've got a couple of rings, and I have the actual trophies, replica trophies that were given to me. But yeah, they and those are special because they look just like the ones that you can go over to the Broncos facilities and go see. But yeah, that is special. That was a special moment. And realizing, like, man, this is John's last game. This is his last bus smoking a victory. That was awesome.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, literally that story right there, being able to enjoy that moment with one of the GOATs of the game gave me chills. I don't know about you, Alex, but I enjoyed that story and that context.
Absolutely.
That context and the emotion. It gives a lot more. It gives a lot more context to the moment. And dude, I know that you don't take. I'm sure you do not take those moments for granted, man. Those things last. They last with you forever. So, dude, awesome perspective, Byron. Thanks for weighing in on that, man. That made my day. That was awesome, man. So, anyway,
I appreciate it. It was just fun. It was fun reliving that too. And I haven't told that story to a lot of people, so it was fun to relive that moment.
Well, guys, I think that brings a conclusion to episode 21. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. Make sure you follow these guys, Byron Chamberlain at BC_Chamberlain on both Twitter and Instagram, and then Alex at V_Broncos, myself at Keegan Hartman 1, and then follow the Broncos Brawl page. I'm going to have a couple of these snippets. I'm going to be dropping little tidbits and kind of relive these moments and give context from Byron's perspective. So be looking for that on the Broncos Brawl social media. Byron, once again, thank you for your perspective, man. Alex, as always, I mean, we got top, dude. That was insane. That was great. Great perspective and great context from Byron. So
great stuff.
you can't top that. So all right, guys. Well, that's going to bring a conclusion to episode 21. So until next time, thank you for tuning in and have an awesome rest of your weekend, guys. God bless.